Okay, this is a minor windowsill reconstruction, and I'm calling it minor because of the exterior window casings are still okay. They're not rotted to the bottom, so those don't have to be removed. That which makes the job more extensive. It is rotted on both sides, and one thing that I did do, I did undercut the window casing. Um, because the reason is because the rot does extend under there and it does tend to go up into the end grain. And I did notice on previous window casings that they were not treated on the end grain. They were not primed by the manufacturer. These window casings come as part of the window, which was a 1984 window. It's quite old. So I want to get under there. I undercut these by using a guide. I just used this paint stir, which is about 1/8 of an inch, to set the depth. And then I just used this thin saw, finish saw, to undercut it. That way I'm going to be able to get liquid penetrant underneath that, and ultimately I'll be able to get the paint under that, and ultimately I wouldn't be able to get it caulked under there, for example, because otherwise I really can't get at that area under there, and that will continue to rot potentially. Okay, these window cases are, even though there was rot on the windowsill underneath, they still seem fine. It's a little surprising. So first thing I do on something like this is I dig out all of the rot that I can, and then I apply boracare, diluted 1:1, to try to get the borate, which is an antifungal, into this. And that I generally do that once or twice, 2 times, or actually at least 2 times, and then over a period of really kind of a week or so, I try to dry this out. The boracare goes in with a water solution, and one of the important things to do is to try to get it really dry before applying the other product which I'm using, which is the liquid wood and the wood epoxy, which is a wood epoxy. So the idea is to dig it out as much as you can, because I'm going to be refilling it. This is a very hard thing to dry because of rain. I have to cover this up whenever there's a chance of rain, and then over a period of days it's possible to dry it out somewhat. Possibly still not as much as I'd like. I used a hair dryer in this case also to just help the drying. And then the other thing I've done is I've drilled a hole adjacent to the damaged area where I put in these borate rods, small rod. In this case they're 1/2 inch, and that's going to be sealed up just with the 2-part epoxy, the wood epoxy. Okay, I'll use the pause function as I try to get through different sections here. My strategy on this is to try to use a dam, a wooden guide, as I fill the with the 2-part epoxy, and then use a spatula, and then using that as a guide to level it, to try to reconstruct some of the feature on this windowsill. This feature is not actually critical to the operation of the windowsill. This is just something I thought it would look nicer. The real key is that, of course, the water should just roll off. But the windowsill does. This windowsill does come with this little ridge feature, so I'm going to try to preserve that if I can. We'll see how that goes. So the first step is going to be mixing and applying the 2-part liquid wood epoxy. Okay, the idea is that it will soak in and provide rigidity. So I'll hit pause now. Okay, first step, I mixed up that amount of the two-part epoxy. I'm waiting about 10 minutes because the relative humidity is kind of high. It's about 80%. They recommend waiting 10 to 20 minutes of induction time. This is to help this set in a deep-walled container so that the humidity doesn't get into the mix. If you apply it apparently in a humid environment, the surface is tacky. Okay, so I'm going to let this sit. Maybe I'll cover it up for 10 minutes, then I'll apply it. Okay, I have applied the liquid wood very liberally. I do have some extra left over, but because of the mixing, the time it takes to mix it up, and the working life, it's always better to have a little bit extra left over than to have to try to make another batch. Okay, now I'm going to mix up the solid product. Okay, I added the two-part epoxy. It's always a difficult job. It gets tacky. Towards the end, I always have to rely on sanding quite a bit to get it smooth, but at the end, after it's painted, it seems kind of okay. The main thing is to preserve the wood. Okay, so that's it here. I might include something after it's all been painted and everything, but that's the end. Okay, thanks, bye.